Stephen Kaufman has been an instructional designer for 19 years and is a senior instructional designer and strategic initiatives coordinator at the University of Akron. Currently, he serves as one of the Quality Matters Ohio Consortium state leads and is chair of their executive committee. Steve is also a certified APP QMR facilitator, course review manager, and master reviewer. Through his experience, he has been able to help grow online programs by providing insight and guidance into the course development process and frequently coaches institutions on their QM implementation. Welcome, Steve.
Thank you, Nancy, for the awesome intro. And thank you to all of you. We've got over 800 people on the webinar today. I see that chat going. So continue on with the chat. I kind of have it up to the side. I love to chat with you kind of during the presentation if we can. Give me a second and I'm going to share my screen. And then I guess you can probably get the recording going, Nancy. So I'd share.
Let's see here. I think um, Claudia, I
The recording
think
has to
she.
start it. Yep. Yeah.
Okay,
We're
great. Thank you,
recording.
Claudia.
There we go. And give me 1 second here. I'm going to just put up this and make sure I can see the chat on the side so I can just see all of the things that
We
I'm doing.
still have people logging in, so.
Yeah, this is fantastic. Yeah, keep logging in, and thank you everybody for being here today. I am so excited to talk about authentic assessment. You all have it figured out already, right? I mean, this is not really something we have to even have a conversation. Let's continue talking about the Backstreet Boys. That was a good conversation earlier, but no, we don't have a really good answer for authentic assessment just yet with AI, and I find myself asking and trying to answer questions about this in pretty much every client or faculty consultation that I've been working on in the last 2 years, really. And I've started to trying to put together, my thoughts and examples of how do I go through and give faculty members some reassurance that the things that we're designing or the assignments, the assessments, the alignment that we have in our courses can stand up in the face of AI, right? It's something that stresses us out. I'm sure some of you probably can relate, especially if you're on the faculty support side of the house, where it's like, I don't even know if I'm grading real human work anymore. Like, what am I gonna do? So this is really hard, and so I appreciate you joining me for this conversation today. And I'm hoping that there's some great takeaways, and we'll have some time for some questions on the side. And again, I can see the chat if you have questions. So first off, oh, let me go. Here we go. So let's just acknowledge that these are really trying times, right? It seems like every day I feel like I have a good handle, maybe, on all of the different things that I can do with technology, right? I'm an instructional designer. I've been doing this for a while. I know a thing or two because I've seen a thing or two. But the reality is that every new update, every new plugin, every tool that my faculty members discover on their own, they want support for these things. And so this also in the face of the fact that we're building data centers everywhere, and it seems like AI is the topic of conversation. It's certainly propping up the economy. All of these different things are at play. And we continue to see articles like this, right? University students feel anxious, confused, maybe distrustful about AI in the classroom among peers. We see students that are trying to file suit against institutions saying, my faculty member just used AI to grade my papers. Is that fair? ChatGPT may be eroding critical thinking skills, right? This is the big one that I hear. So there's lots of research that's going on with whether or not students are actually able to perform, or are they just farming out all those critical thinking skills to whatever free or paid subscription they want with regards to AI. Another side effect is the erosion of student teacher trust. Transparency is a really big part of authentic assessment, in my opinion, right? Not only from the student's point of view, but from the faculty member trying to ascertain whether or not the students realize that I might be using AI to generate a rubric. Do I disclose that in my syllabus? It's a good question, and maybe one that we haven't considered before. And then, of course, should be AI even be involved in assessing student work? And that's a slippery slope as well, right? That could be an ethical issue. But I've also got faculty members that say, well, they use it. Why can't I use it? And I'm kind of in that camp as long as you're transparent. So I saw New York Times had the other day, the professors are using ChatGPT and some students aren't happy about it, right? As I mentioned. So it's possibly very hypocritical for us to say absolutely no way, can't use it, but I myself am going to use it to come up with an assignment prompt or some ideas on how to make something better. Maybe those things have to be part of the conversation, right? University of Sydney said what to do about assessments if we can't out-design or outrun AI. And I'm going to tell you just right off the bat, slide number 2 in this whole presentation is you can't outrun AI. It's here to stay. It's the next disruptor, just like calculators were a disruptor and smartphones were a disruptor and having Google in your pocket was a disruptor. This is just the next thing. So I'll tell you off the bat, don't freak out. We can figure this out. It's just going to take a concerted effort and a deep dive into how we develop courses. Stephen Mintz, if you've ever read any of his stuff, any of his articles, he's a history faculty member, I think, at University of Austin, and he can be a little strongly worded, let's say, in his perspectives. But something that he had said in the fall semester stood out to me, and he had this article that came out that said higher ed is sleepwalking towards obsolescence, and AI won't be the cause; it'll be the accelerant. And that sounds abrasive, and I think that certainly is the clickbait, right? But here's really what he goes in to say. AI did not break higher education, right? And I still feel that way. AI did not break higher ed. It simply made the rot impossible to ignore. Again, strong words, but what does he mean? And how have universities responded? Well, in fall semester, I maybe would have agreed with the statement that maybe with silence. Because I don't know if, at least at my institution, there's one solid single voice that summarizes how faculty feel about AI and one single resource that we provide. Some universities have figured this out. We're still working on it, and that's okay. At least we're working on it, right? Maybe without campus-wide forums, without a shared vision, that's important. Without clear policies, that's huge. But most importantly, the crux of this conversation today is without the redesign of pedagogy, right? How do we redevelop courses? Because the path that we've been following, same business as usual, is not going to work because of the level of access that our students have. So AI has simply exposed, and this is what Stephen Mintz is saying, has exposed how much of the existing model is already hollow. Lectures that students skip and no one notices, right? How many of you feel that way? Where if you're a faculty member on the call today, you can look at the data, you can look at the statistics and whatever, it could be YouTube views, it could be Panopto or Kaltura or one of whatever the system is that you use for lectures. And you notice, I'm seeing some thumbs up there that yeah, my engagement with my lectures are not as high as maybe they used to be. Maybe students are doing AI recaps for things, right? Assigned readings that no student completes because nothing depends on them. From an instructional design perspective, I would call that broken alignment, right? Maybe I have courses that I've worked on where the optional readings, because I'm really excited about this topic as a subject matter expert, outweighs the required things. Anybody ever run into a course like that where there's like a lot of great content, but the students are focusing on the wrong things as a part of that content? Essays that don't demand serious research or critical thinking. It could just be this article summarizes this particular theory from this prominent person. Can you answer a few questions about it? And that's all the deeper it might get. Teaching reduced to content delivery, the one thing that AI automates flawlessly, right? If it's all about generating stuff, AI can do that as the day is long. But you've probably felt like, and I certainly feel this way in my class, where I get handed a publisher pack from one of the mainstream publishers, and it's got all my PowerPoints, and it's got my lectures, and it's got instructor notes. I can even outsource my thinking as a faculty member, right? I teach a senior level HR class on the Addy model, essentially. And it was really hard this last semester to try and like figure out what is the right balance between the things that I need them to create, the things I need them to do authentically and demonstrate to me, and the stuff that maybe is coming from the publisher, right? It's that balancing act. And so he goes on to say the uncomfortable truth is that AI has revealed the emptiness that increasingly lies at the heart of college education. And if you feel like you're just going through the motions of course development, I'm with you. I'm there. I love one of the speakers that we've had at QM. His name's Patrick Dempsey. We had him at Akron recently. He talks about the instructional designers need to create margin. He's all about giving faculty members and giving designers time to innovate and be creative. And how do you create that margin? Well, you can use AI to do some of those things. So then you can really focus on with your colleagues, how do I make that assessment true, that I understand that the critical thinking is present and I can document that. It's all about surfacing process, right? And we're going to dive into that. So I was talking to one of my faculty members fall semester. And so I'm quoting one of my very frustrated faculty members and said, Steve, I don't know anymore. It just seems like 100% of my student papers are AI generated. And this faculty member, full tenured faculty member, and she's telling me, Look, I know what a freshman or a sophomore can produce, and this ain't it. This is way beyond anything that they are capable of writing. Not because they're not prepared academically or they're not great students. It's just underclassmen don't write this way. And they certainly don't cite resources that I didn't exclusively tell them to look for or provide to them in the class. Another faculty member says, I feel like all I'm doing is grading a machine. Anybody feel like that? Have you had that sentiment happen with your faculty members, right? It's crazy. David saying in the chat, writes the balance between gen ed, upper division, discipline courses in consideration. There's all these things, yes, about like how much of this should be standardized from like the curriculum that we've approved as academics. This is what they need to learn, and how much is available. How much bandwidth do we have in the semester to teach them the stuff that's really going to get to the crux of the subject, and not just like here's the check boxes of what the gen ed core is looking for, right? I totally resonate with that. Thank you for that comment. So here's the balancing act, right? Students' critical thinking and just the ability to get quick answers to questions. I have a lot of faculty members using Notebook LM right now, and some people are feeling like, well, Notebook is really like Cliff Notes or Spark Notes on steroids. It can create a podcast for me. I can do video presentations with it. It can make me infographics. And I tell faculty members, use it for the stuff, right? But how are you weaving this tapestry of your curriculum together to get to the heart of critical thinking is where you can spend your time. Let it do the infographics. Let it do a chapter summary for you, because the students are going to want to do that if your topic is hard to understand anyway. Why would I stand in the way of that? So let me ask you a question. I'm going to bring up a poll question on the screen. Get your cell phones out and grab this QR code. I want to just say, let's just do a quick sentiment kind of check here. If a student submits a flawless essay to you that sounds AI generated, what's your gut instinct? Like, what would you do first? I'm curious. All right, so immediately jumped up on the screen, run it through AI detection. I think that's where a lot of us would go. Ask the student to explain writing process. Yes, process. Show me how you got to what you're doing, right? Elizabeth, you're saying that fix my assignment. I love assignments like that, right? Like, where did this go wrong? Right? Like, show me how to make it better. Compare it to earlier work or writing samples. And if it's the first essay out of the gate, you might not have earlier writing samples, so that can be hard. Accept it unless there's direct evidence of misconduct, or maybe require a follow-up assignment or oral defense. And I'm actually kind of glad to see that as a small number. There's been a bit of literature now about this, about how one of the easy answers to combat AI is to, well, have the students do a presentation on it and have almost like like an oral defense. And uh, what's interesting is the objectives for those types of assignments have to completely change, because what are you actually assessing? Are you assessing their ability to clearly articulate their argument about a particular thing that they wrote about in their paper? And that's often what it is. If you're a great presenter, that might just be the thing that gets them over the finish line to get the A. Or is it actually being graded on the substance of what they're saying, right? And that is a slippery slope. And I'm not a communications faculty member. While I think I could probably grade a live presentation, that's not my field, right? I'm talking instructional design. So I'd be reticent to maybe go in that direction. And before I'd read some of that research and some of the comments online, I might have been one of those instructional designers that recommended that to faculty. So I'm glad that you're asking the student to explain the writing process as the most popular answer, because surfacing process, I think, is where we want to go. But the problem is, when I go to a faculty meeting and I say, let's talk about authentic assessment, the answers are all over the board. I get everything from, well, my students are doing really great in the assignment, so it must be authentic. Or, yeah, statistically, I'm looking at my section and compared to the other sections, and my students seem to be outperforming the other students and with other faculty. Maybe they've got the authentic assessment problem, not me, certainly. So we need a common definition, and I want to ask this question of you. How do you define authentic assessment? You're explaining it, or someone's asking you in a department meeting. What's just some things that come to mind? Just throw them out there. Work they would complete in a real job. Yeah. Can you tie it to real world examples? Personal experience, making learning personal, connected to course outcomes and their needs. Yes. Real world. I get that a lot, right? Real world experience. Real life work. Okay, that's it. So real world application assesses the learning objective. Yeah, I'm glad I assesses the learning objective. Is that an instructional designer who mentioned that? I'm curious. Meaningful learning. Okay. Student can explain the topic in a cohesive way. Yes, that's process. Mhm. It's customized. Okay, so individualized learning paths, which, surprise, AI can probably do pretty well. Applied demonstration of skills knowledge. So applied is the thing we're focusing in on. Work that has direct connection to their lives, experiences, assesses what's supposed to be assessed, real work examples. Thank you. These are, yes, you guys are all hitting various aspects of how I would quantify authentic assessment. Let me ask another question. Which of the following would you consider the most important feature of authentic assessment? What's the most important feature of an authentic assessment if you had to just pick one? Requires process and reflection, okay? Mirrors real world applications. This is fantastic. It encourages student choice and creativity, okay? Difficult for AI to complete independently. It promotes collaboration and iteration. Okay, so it seems like the overwhelming response is it requires process and reflection. Yes, 100%. I agree. And that's so often what we haven't asked students to do in the past. In a pre-AI world, it was enough for me to just submit the paper and not really tell you where, like, other than my works cited page or my publications page, I didn't really have to tell you how I made the paper. I didn't really have to talk through my thought process. I didn't have to surface a conversation that I had with my roommate about, like, well, what do you think about this? And what do you think about that? And I'm thinking about using this example. And hey, I've got a great PowerPoint presentation that I found online over here. Maybe I can work in some of that if I cite it. Like, a lot of that doesn't get documented, right? So it's not how we normally package curriculum. And so that's really, really great. So let me give it a shot. If we have to have like a working definition of authentic assessment, this is what I would say it is. Authentic assessment refers to the evaluation of student learning through tasks that reflect what? Real world challenges, right? A lot of you hit real world application, real world challenges, real work like things that you're going to encounter outside of academia. They require the application of knowledge and skills in meaningful contexts, right? How do you get people to participate in your discussion forum? Make it meaningful to their real life and encourage original thought. These assessments often emphasize what? Process, problem solving, transfer of learning beyond the classroom. So how do I get that knowledge transfer to happen? How do I document that? That's hard. So the penultimate question that we have to answer is how do we design assignments where AI becomes a helpful tool, the value add, the thing that makes the thing better, the end product better, and not just a replacement for students thinking? How do we do that? So let me give you a bunch of examples of what I've been working on that I think helps make our assessments more authentic. And these are real examples from courses that I've developed with faculty here at UA, just to kind of get the creative juices flowing for you, okay? Some of you may have heard of an activity called a privilege walk. And I had this is in a social work class where the student is still trying to figure out, do I want to be a social work major? I need to determine whether or not I want to work with diverse populations. I want to figure out if like my heart is to help my community. Is this a major that I want to pursue? And so what we do in the privilege walk in a face-to-face class is we line a group of people up and the faculty member answers 50 questions. And if we were face-to-face today, I would grab 6 or 7 of you from the front row of this presentation and I would line you up right next to me and I would ask you some of these questions. So let's just pause for a second. Think through this on your own. Okay, these are the questions that the students have to answer in a face-to-face class. If you're right-handed, take one step forward. If English is your first language, take one step forward. If one or both of your parents have a college degree, take one step forward. If you can find Band-Aids at mainstream stores designed to blend in or match with your skin tone, take one step forward. If you rely or have relied primarily on public transportation, take one step back. If you attended previous schools with people you felt were like yourself, take one step forward. If you constantly feel unsafe walking alone at night, take one step back. If your household employs servants, gardeners, take one step forward. If you can move through the world without fear of assault, take one step forward. If you studied the culture of your ancestors in elementary school, take one step forward. If you often felt that your parents were too busy to spend time with you, take one step back. And that one always crushes me a little bit. If you were ever made fun of or bullied for something you couldn't change or beyond your control, and I'm not going to ask all 50 questions, mind you, I'm just showing you the activity. If your family has ever left your homeland or entered another country, not of your own free will, take one step back. And if you never think twice about calling the police when trouble occurs, take one step forward. And then my last question, if your family owns a computer, take one step forward. Okay. So some of these, like not to, I should have maybe put a disclosure at the beginning, not to inform any trauma here, but you can see the tone that these questions are asking. It's meant to make you uncomfortable, right? And you can imagine that by the time I'm done asking 50 questions, I have a class of 30 students that are all over the place, right? Some way up by the chalkboard, some in the back of the room that were taking step forwards, and I'm looking around and seeing my peers, and there's this unease and tension. So here's my question. How do you create this as an online assignment? I'm going to just pause for a second, think it through. How do you create that same feeling, that unease, but as an online assignment? Like it's a physical thing. What do you do? So I'm looking in the chat here. Let me take a look. So Bell found an online privilege walk. I found a few as well, using Miro. Okay, I like the direction that's going. Students collect beads for necklace. Make it a poll. Could do a poll. Walked off the stage and out of the auditorium. Oh gosh. I recall doing this in different contexts, but a few made me realize that everyone has privilege in some way, depends on who you're comparing. Yeah, and that's the idea, right? It's a different population, different cohort every semester. Maybe a custom HTML interactive. So Juanita might be doing some vibe coding and getting a really cool interactive created there. Maybe using a Kahoot poll. And I like poll questions, right? But there's a certain degree of anonymity that we can have here. And part of it is to like recognize that the person sitting next to you had a very different life experience than you did. So I think students themselves give themselves points. Is there a way to gamify to provide advantages to an avatar? You could use Claude. So you guys have a lot of great ideas. And some of you hit exactly what I did. So here's what I did. I used AI and I said, okay, at the time I was using Sora, and I said, Sora, can you create for me the opportunity mountain? And what I want to do is I want to put a scale from like 1 to 32, let's call it. I don't think anybody's going to hit 50 out of 50 and be at like the very top of the mountain here. We're going to have some different things. And then I said, okay, I brought this image into actually implementing this as a part of our introduce yourself discussion forum. What do introduce yourself discussions often become? It's the throwaway assignment. It's the let me know while you're in the class and tell me a little bit about yourself and why you're here. Well, they're going to say, because it's required, I have to be here, and it's in my major. What else do you want to know? And it becomes the thing that we all kind of like, okay, well, yeah, QM says we have to have a place for the students to introduce themselves, and the faculty should introduce themselves. But it goes beyond that. You can start asking them questions to describe their life experience, give a little bit of the narrative, a little bit of the life story. So they read that first. That's part one of the assignment. And then I use a web application called Mural, mural.co. It's very much like Miro, where you create a board. Okay. And what I did was I said, everybody is going to pick a random color flag. And I had an Excel spreadsheet off to the side where they would go through and they would self-score on their own. And then they would grab a flag, and whatever score they got, if they're like 18, if they're at 7, if they're not even on the mountain, they're somewhere in the parking lot, they would put the flag on there anonymously. And then we asked them to debrief with this. So, and just for the accessibility hawks on the call, yes, Mural is accessible. Yes, you can do tab order and it will screen read for you. So I wanted to also make sure, in the light of all the accessibility stuff that we've been working on across the planet, I don't want to necessarily adopt tools that will prevent a student from being able to participate. So point on that. Here's what the actual prompt was. So I need you to do a personal reaction. What was it like for you to participate in this activity? What stood out to you about the distribution of privilege and disadvantage of the group? How does this exercise connect to the values of social work? Get back to what are the values of social work, such as recognizing inherent dignity, worth of every person, understanding personal environment, working towards social justice. Here's what the students said. Participating in this activity brought back the same feelings I experienced when I first did a similar exercise in an in-person class last year. Both times I ended up being in the back while many others stood in the front, which I initially felt embarrassed and isolated. And during the virtual experience, I wasn't shocked by my placement because I've been aware of that in many of the spaces growing up. I didn't have as much privilege as some of my peers, but still seeing that reality mapped out physically, even online, made it harder to ignore and invited me to reflect. Yes. Another student. I began answering the questions without much thought, and about halfway through, it occurred to me that my answers were more complicated, right? Oh, I got you to think a little deeper, right? The questions brought up feelings from my childhood, my adulthood. I was surprised to see that my score was -3 after answering the questions. We didn't ask the students to share what the number was. Some of them just elected to do that. When I examined the distribution, it appears to be evenly distributed throughout the steps, but no one crossed over to the top half, I noticed. So the activity is a reminder had different experiences, oppressions, levels of privilege, and then tied it back to the social work profession, right? So this is it's kind of a gut check type of assignment. I have faculty members that ask really difficult questions in my psych program. It's very similar, but it's partially shock value, but it's partially also to help you recognize and appreciate the fact that as social workers, we're working with diverse populations, but we ourselves in the major are also diverse. Um, so a less frustrated faculty member said, all this AI stuff is exciting, but how can I actually use this in a way that actually gets my students to think? Okay, that's a question that I get a lot. One of the examples that I have is in an ancient Greece and Rome class. And the challenge was, it's the classic college challenge. Steve, students don't want to read 30 pages on Hammurabi or Cleopatra. Or they're reading some scholarly article in a reader that's above their heads, and it's really academic sounding, and it's hard to connect with because these are people who've been dead for centuries. What can I do? How can I get them into it? And I said, okay, well, maybe there's an AI thing that we can do here. So we created an agent with ChatGPT, like a paid subscription. And I said, well, what if we go through and we create personas, and we tell the AI that it cannot do a web search, so it will decrease the amount of hallucination that it would encounter with bogus answers. We just wanted to analyze the primary source material and then allow the students to ask questions. So in this particular example, they can interview with Cleopatra, Hammurabi, Augustus, or Ashoka. And so here was the question prompt, okay? I'm excited to share with you that you have the opportunity to sit down with interview the legendary King Hammurabi on his laws. This is your big break. So as an aspiring journalist, be prepared for this interview, which is read the primary source material. So there's the hyperlink to the primary source material. Here are the clauses I want you to look at specifically. And then here's some ideas of questions that you can ask. And it took a lot of training. It took probably 20 or 30 iterations of trying to get ChatGPT to not give me a bullet pointed summary answer, right? I want it to be conversational. I want the AI to push back against the student, ask another question back at them. Take the journalist off their high horse a little bit. So here's how it played out. They do the analysis. Here's the course objectives, right? Discuss various cultural traditions, analyze, interpret the primary text, and effectively communicate arguments. Okay, we can do that. So we used AI and we created interview with Hammurabi. So there's a Hammurabi sitting at the Letterman desk, let's say. And here's an actual video of how it turned out. So let me play a little bit of this here. And I'm a slow typer. So here's what I did. It starts off with the prompt saying, Hammurabi, you stand in the presence of Hammurabi, dum dum dum, shepherd of the people, exalted prince, chosen of the gods, and Anu and Anil. I ruled Babylon with strength and justice, yada, yada, yada. What would you ask of me? My laws, my judgments are burdens. So it took a while to get it to be like, there's this air of arrogance, right? We wanted it to have. We wanted it to be like, oh, this is crazy. So I just started out like, okay, well, you say that in Hammurabi's code that you should have an eye for an eye, right? You kill one of my family members, I kill one of your family members, and we're square. But Gandhi says that an eye for an eye makes the whole world blind. So what do you have to say about that, Mr. Hammurabi guy? And he says, well, wise man who considers the words of those who come after him. I don't know Gandhi because Gandhi doesn't exist yet, for he walks the earth long after I return to dust. But he makes the case of like, well, before it was like you kill one of my family members and then I slaughter everyone in your clan. So really, isn't my way more beneficial? I limit bloodshed by eye for an eye. So what do you have to say about that? And so the student goes back and forth, and they have to turn in this conversation back and forth, and then do a discussion about it, which was really neat. Here's what they said about it. After interacting with Emperor Hammurabi as AI, I say, I've been impressed with some of the responses I gave and also its ability to clarify my follow-up questions. I asked a few questions ranging from the offense types, the penalties, inheritance, and even some laws I thought were contradictory. In case of contradiction, the AI tried to defend the decisions, right? It says, overall, I found the AI to be a helpful tool for understanding the Mesopotamian legal system. So it was fun, right? You used AI in a novel way. You got them to ask, questions from their own context, maybe something that they have read, their personal feelings about whether or not something that Hammurabi says was abrasive or not. Another student says, my interview with Hammurabi changed the way I view his code. Oh, okay. I was aware while studying this code, I was examining 37-year-old document from a today perspective. But that being said, before the interview, I found the laws to be surprisingly logical, comprehensive, and even enlightened. So maybe that went the other way, but I understood that there's a divide between 37 centuries, right? Vastly different cultures. Sometimes he says his logic is difficult to argue, right? So thinking a little deeper than just give me a summary of what Hammurabi's code, and was there anything that stood out to you? Well, how would those laws apply today? Well, this is an interaction, a conversation that we can use with that. A couple of questions from the chat. Do you have the students record their AI interaction like you just showed, or just the transcript, or both? Yes and yes. So some of my instructors that have taken kind of a riff on this assignment will have the students open up Microsoft Teams and record the conversation. And you can hear the student talking through like, oh, geez, how would I answer that? And they're typing back to the prompt right inside it, and they submit the movie file right inside of like a Dropbox folder in the learning management system. Other faculty members in this particular example just copied and pasted and then did like a debrief paper on what the conversation was and some of the reflective pieces. So it was really neat to see how this is working. Some of the riffs that faculty members have been taking on this, I've got a faculty member right now who's teaching a class on parasites, parasitology over in biology. And what he wants to do is he wants to create an agent that has a case file of symptoms. And so the student has to understand what questions doctors would ask when you're trying to figure out if the patient has a particular parasite. And the point of the assignment is to figure out which parasite. And so you ask, like, did you drink unfiltered water? Were you wading through any streams recently? So you're trying to train the student in asking really good questions, and we're trying to get the AI to respond the way a patient would be, which is with vague generalities and then some specifics to prompt the student to think deeper about it. So this isn't just like a humanities perspective. This certainly has implications for STEM, for nursing, for client interactions, any role plays. My faculty members have really had a lot of fun with this past semester, and it shows that the faculty member is aware of AI, and we can leverage it in a way that's not confrontational and is actually kind of fun. Here's another example. This really wasn't using AI exclusively, but again, this was a class on it was like ancient Ottoman Empire, I think it was, with another faculty member, and again, trying to read the primary source material. And what they asked the students to do was just to create a Yelp review of gender, right? For the purpose of understanding the harem system in the Ottoman Empire as like an interesting way to talk about the culture at that time. And so students used AI and a little bit of Photoshop. They did this on their own. This is what was really cool about this. They took the imperial harem and said, 2.5 stars. And the student put in like a fake image and put in pictures of what the harem looked like. And they're all like ancient paintings and things. Said initially, not a big fan. This is expected when I was ripped away from absolutely everything, I suppose that doesn't really reflect, whatever it is. And what was really cool for this particular student, they had the business owner respond to the bad review. Like, don't post pictures of non-harems. That's not my harem. This is my harem. So hilarious, right? They kind of wrote the little review there, which was a fun take on putting a little creative spin to get them to think about, how do I apply this really obscure text, this primary source material? Let me hit some questions. Michelle's asking, where do you house the trained agents, or do instructors use their own accounts? So initially, I build them on my own within my department, and then I use the share link inside of ChatGPT to give them access to it. A lot of the faculty members are like, "Oh, it's only $20 a month. I'll just buy it," and then they have the ability to edit it on their own. Otherwise, they'd have to go to their designer to make modifications and tweak the prompt. Usually, over multiple consultations, Michelle, we're refining the prompt and refining the output to make it a little bit more dialed into what we want. Jennifer is saying, I'm thinking of students who are resistant to inauthentic, authentic assessments. Like, I wouldn't do a Yelp review like this. Yes. And I think there was a certain degree of students that are like, I'm just going to give it 5 stars, or I'm not going to burn down this business for being ethically wrong. So it didn't pigeonhole the students into having to respond in a particular way. That's often the problem that we have with discussion prompts is we ask questions in generalities, and one student nails it out of the park, and then nobody wants to say anything different because that was a really great answer. So this kind of puts the creative flow back on the student. Gabriella is asking, have you had experiences embedding agents in the LMS or SharePoint web pages, for example? Yeah, we use Brightspace at the University of Akron, and we use intelligent agents to do some of the automation and communication. We're trying to hit regular and substantive interaction, at least the regular part of that, with some of the automations. Do you have any advice or insight regarding using agents in master courses? I don't have advice on that, other than making sure that whoever's leading the master course creates content that's accessible to all of the children courses that fall behind that. So just wanted to call out a couple of those things right there. So we still have this tension, right? We need students to produce authentic work. However, we need to produce AI literate graduates, right? And the reason why is because everybody in the business world is telling us the number one skill employers want in 2025, and most job seekers don't list this as, I need my students to be AI competent. Okay, so how do I do that? Employers want new grads with AI experience and knowledge. We see it over and over and over again. And here's the thing. Here's the direction that I think universities get it wrong. You'll come out, and I'm using you all in a general sense, not you specifically, but like what we do, let's say in academia, is some policymaker at the university says AI will be in every single class, and it grabs a whole bunch of headlines, and the faculty members go like this in the faculty senate meeting, and the instructional designers are like, no, that's not what you're supposed to be doing. It doesn't make sense to put AI in every class, right? But we also understand that AI can do some things, right? That can help us. So here's kind of a take on it. Using AI to generate just text is risky. Students may rely on it too much. You may struggle to evaluate genuine thinking, certainly, and the value of the assignment may drop, right? Am I even really putting any thought into this whatsoever? But when faculty design intentionally to integrate AI as a tool within the process, it's a step in the process from A to Z. You'll get increased student engagement because AI is new, it's exciting, it's interesting. Okay, we're acknowledging the elephant in the room, but it also presents opportunities to teach digital literacy, AI literacy, right? Ethical use and metacognition. How did I use the AI? And so I'm going to share some of my strategies with that here in a second. And there's a stronger assurance that what students submit reflects their thinking and learning, not just AI output. And I ask this specifically, okay? It requires, though, that we rework everything. And I've been asking my faculty members, much to the detriment of a productive instructional design meeting, that we have to look at every quiz. We have to look at every written piece of work. We have to think, could AI do this without me really putting in much effort at all in 5 minutes? And if that's the answer, then, well, we need to figure out a different way. How do I do that? Well, first off, document the process, right? We hit that in the poll. We want the students to surface, how did they get to letter Z from starting at A? So I have them put in rubrics that specifically call out criterion with performance levels if AI is involved. So do they provide thoughtful, detailed reflection and a clear delineation of AI versus personal work? And I'll show you some examples of this with specific revision examples. Okay, there's a whole ed tech industry that's popping up just to do that. It's like pick your tool that you want to help surface revision management. Okay, Word can do this, Google Docs can do this. And so you having a component as a part of the rubric, if AI is accepted or allowed, we want to make sure that students are clearly articulating how they're providing original thought. What does that look like? So some of my faculty members have been working with my team to generate AI use declaration forms. So like, did you use any of the tools? Be transparent. Yes or no. If yes, please specify what tools did you use? For what purposes did you use these tools? Did you use this for outlining? Did you use this to try and make sense? Did you use this for flashcards? How did you go about it? And then here's the critical question. How did you ensure that your final submission reflects your own thinking, learning, and understanding, right? The metacognitive part, thinking about your thinking, the learning about your learning. So describe your experience in using AI. Did you run into hallucination? How did that impact you? Did you go down the wrong way on this? This was actually a part of my final case study assignment that I assigned in my HR class because I wanted students to use AI because I tell them, because it is so easy to create something that looks amazing, I hold you to a higher standard. So if you tell me you're going to use AI, it better be rock star looking, fantastic PowerPoint, great looking graphics, very clearly articulated statements, and I should see the surface of your learning there. And so I wanted them to realize that it was okay. Like I want them to experiment, but I also want them to note for me what the pitfalls are. Some of my students told me, yeah, that suggested something that was way out of the context of your class. That was like the graduate level course. I'm like, yeah, so what did you do? How did you prompt it differently? Did you tell it to kind of bring that down to like a junior level college class? So like I wanted to ask them questions about like, okay, yeah, like okay that you used it, but how did you evolve with it as a part of your process? Ted Chiang had this to say, and there's a fantastic website that I want that the QR code will take you to called againstai.com. And it's a bunch of faculty members that got together and like, I just want to create assignments where I'm just like, you know what? I don't want to use AI at all. I'm not like, here's some assignments that really make sure that we don't go down that raft. But he says this, one analogy popularized by Ted Chiang is that using Gen AI is like asking a forklift to lift weights for you, then declaring yourself, I'm fit when the forklift finishes the reps, even though you didn't lift a muscle, right? The writing process is the weight training for your brain. So who benefits when your brain is weak? Let's get strong, right? And so using AI as a part of the learning process, I think is a good thing. But again, surfacing the boundaries of how we use it and being okay with training and working with your students through it, because we can't quite nail it to the wall yet. It's got a new capability every other day. It's challenging, right? But I think you get points as a faculty member when you're being transparent about that and understanding that it's moving so fast. All we can do is try and take a snapshot at this point in time and try and make an assignment out of that. And certainly there's the sentiment the other direction. I saw a couple chat messages saying like, yeah, some of my students don't want to use AI at all. And there's certainly that is certainly something that we have to address as faculty members. Students who refuse to use AI. I couldn't remember the last time I'd written something for myself. I did a presentation the other day on cross-course authentic assessment, and the article was, I think, in Fortune magazine talking about how Gen Z, all right, the current generation going through school is engineering, I think they called it an analog future for themselves, where I don't know if you know this, but there's an aftermarket for iPods. And what's funny about it is if you still have that old iPod sitting in your desk, that's worth a lot of money now because students don't want to be connected to the internet. Why do you go to like a local store and you see vinyl sitting on the shelves now? And I'm like, yes, this is awesome. So students are realizing like, yeah, having this in front of you all the time and just, you know, the scroll culture, it's killing my brain cells, right? I can't enjoy life as much because I'm always plugged in. So there's the other side of that. So I will just say that to say there's hope on the horizon that I think, you know, AI is still very novel, but at the same time, I don't think it's going to be like the thing that ends education. Certainly not, right? It's just a tool that we can use. Set clear expectations. This is a snapshot of my syllabus statement from my course. What does my university give me? They give me that top paragraph at the top. AI tools such as ChatGPT are powerful, but make sure that you follow the student code of conduct. That's not enough. I said, this policy applies to these tools. This is what you can do and not do with the tools. This policy applies under the following conditions, only if you properly cite it and only as marked within the syllabus sections where I flagged it. The following processes are in place. You need to contact me if you have questions about my policy. Students are responsible for identifying and addressing inaccurate content, yada, yada. But here's also the counterpoint to it. The rationale for my AI take is students have shown themselves to be responsible, effective learners. I give them the trust. Okay, I trust people implicitly until they give me a reason not to trust them. All right, the assessments have value regardless of your use of Gen AI, and students are informed about the AI risk and benefits. I do a lecture just on how to use AI and tell them what's available to them. I get the wow factor out of the way, but I tell them like, here's where it falls down, and I show them examples and articles and people losing professional licensures because they relied on AI. So I give them the cautionary tale so they understand the mistakes not to make. So the little paragraph just not enough. I felt like I had to give them a little more. How do you make a policy like this? Well, Wake Forest University came out with a really great tool, an AI decision tree, and it kind of walks you through like, should I use AI or should I not use AI? So does it acknowledge the skills valuable given capabilities? No. Okay, well, you probably would want to eliminate or rework that assignment. But if yes, is it important that the students develop the knowledge of skill independent of AI? Okay, if no, could the independent discovery or practice or support developing the knowledge or skill? If no, allowing AI for all learning assessment activities, maybe not, or maybe prohibit. So you can kind of, I share this with faculty members when they're kind of on the fence of like, it's not appropriate to put AI in everything, but how do I know that? The decision tree I find to be helpful. Here's another one. Wake Forest also puts out like the 6 steps for developing an effective approach to AI in your classroom. And there's also a bunch of global examples listed on their website of different syllabus statements of how different universities, how different faculty members across the academia, across the planet, are all contributing examples of their syllabi and how they explain it to their students, which I think is really helpful just to get your mind around it. If your university hasn't come up with a standard boilerplate policy on that, a lot of them have. I would say the majority probably have that I've seen. But if not, maybe share this page with them to help inform that conversation on your campus. The one that I like actually came from Northern Kentucky University. This is how I generated my policy. It asks you questions about, in this course, students are allowed to use AI freely, or maybe they're only allowed with certain exceptions. And you can tell them the tools, the conditions, the processes, the rationale, and it will spit out for you copy and pastable policy text that I can plop right into my syllabus. So that QR code is my cheat sheet. Go ahead and click on that, and then that's actually how I went through and created my one pager that was a lot more specific than what I received from my institution. Okay, so it does to a certain extent require that we rework everything, right? And I think this graphic kind of sums it up. It's not just the simple from getting from point A to point B, right? If you just use AI and it just takes out the whole experience, that's not surfacing the learning, right? So how do we figure out the decisions you made along the way? How do you conflate answers with learning? The mistakes are where it's at. I tell my students, this classroom is where I want you to run into the struggles and where I want you to make the mistakes. Don't take a bad grade as a 100% negative, right? I want to give you opportunities for revision. I want to give you the feedback with your use of AI or not using AI to surface your learning and to make it more dialed in and stronger. And the surprises that are revealed along the way. I think I love this graphic because I feel like it really explains like that's what learning is all about. It's in the trenches. You got to get into it. So do you give your assignments and assessments opportunities to do that? I love this tweet that came out. Joanna, I have no idea how to say her last name, so I'm going to say Joanna M says, "You know what the biggest problem with pushing all things AI is? It's the wrong direction. I want AI to do my laundry and my dishes so that I can do art and writing, not for AI to do my art and writing so I can do my laundry and dishes." Yes, absolutely right. Absolutely right. That's my presentation. I want to open it up to questions. Nancy, if you want to maybe read off some stuff from the Q&A.
Oh, we've got lots there.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
shoot.
One of the easier ones may we use your clear expectations for our class syllabi?
Absolutely. Yep.
Um,
I will send off this presentation as well as a PDF, and I will make sure that you can certainly adapt any of the language that I have there. That Northern Kentucky University QR code one that I shared, that is, I think it's on CodePen. That's where it's being hosted by. But I've forward that to every faculty member who's struggling with coming up with a good policy. So I can,
okay,
yeah.
and that was another question. Can we borrow your syllabus statement or use wording from it?
Yep. You don't even have to Creative Commons license that one. You can just use it. Go for it. I just want to make sure that it's clear for your students.
Okay, and let's see. I go back to the beginning here. In the context of the growing influence of generative AI in higher education, what online professional development or training opportunities exist to support instructors in designing and implementing innovative assessment practices?
Oh God, gosh, that's a great question. I would say there's probably no shortage on free courses you could probably take. Look on Coursera. There's a lot of really great stuff that we've been directing faculty members to on that. I think there's a summer AI workshop on from QM that you could register for. The QM Research Conference just had a bunch of presentations tugging on that exact thread. And I know that a lot of those materials are eventually available in the research library. So check that out on the QM website. But certainly look around. There's whole YouTube channels dedicated to this. I really like Cult of Pedagogy. That's run by Jennifer Gonzalez, who is traditionally a K-12 instructor. I think she's from Virginia or North Carolina. But she's fantastic. She was a South by Southwest EDU keynote speaker one year, and cultofpedagogy.com, I think, is the site. But I'll do a shout out for Jennifer because I think that is a really great resource on how to think about how you package assignments.
Okay, great. We also have the QM Toolkit available on our website
Yeah,
too, so
it's
that may
fantastic.
help. How to build sound QA processes in AI era such as external examination.
If by external examination, like, are you referring to like clinicals and those kind of things, like where I'm doing something outside of a learning management system? I don't
Mm, she
I don't know.
doesn't
Yeah, I
specify
don't know how
here.
to answer that question.
Okay, maybe he'll respond with
Yeah.
some more clarification later.
Other
Um, we discuss about having student usage policy for AI platforms in the syllabi. Should we also have instructor AI use statements in the syllabi as well?
Yes, 100% yes. Whoever asked that question, yeah, if you're going to use it to assess, if you're going to have your students follow policy, you yourself have to disclose what the barriers are for you and what the ground rules are. I told my students, I'm going to tell AI what I think a perfect project is. I'm going to give it the first like exceptional standard, but I am not going to spend my time creating the other performance levels because that is so monotonous and I hate it. I hate creating rubrics. It's just a pain in the butt. I'm sorry, as a QMer, we love the QM rubric. That aside, I hate designing them for myself. So yeah, AI is a huge time saver in that regard. And I tell my faculty members, yeah, use it as that. Like let it save you time. Where I think you run into an ethical issue is if you use AI to grade student work. That is a very slippery slope. And I would caution you not to do that. Only because that's not something the students opted into, right? You're taking their intellectual property. It's the turn it in argument, right? Is like, are you training your model on all of my work? I don't like that. Now that's not to say that you can't use it, apply a rubric anonymously to anonymous, like you copy paste, like, does this read like AI? I'm trying to get my faculty to think beyond just detection. I want them to think about process, not detection, because banning it isn't the solution. Just saying AI says you used it, and oftentimes what gets picked up by the detectors is when they use Grammarly to correct sentences. Like that's not quite how students speak, so that must be AI. No, the student could just be a really good writer, right? You get a lot of false positives that way. So yeah, be transparent. Like, yeah, I totally use AI to make a part of the PowerPoint presentation, or I totally use AI to make this rubric. Be forthwith with that, and you're inviting them to the table to have that conversation with you. Other questions?
Okay, we're probably not going to get to them all, but
That's
we'll
okay.
try.
That's great.
You may have answered this one during the presentation. I like the idea of asking students about their writing process. However, in practice, students come prepared to these meetings to have this conversation. What I sense many times is that I'm being lied to. What questions do you ask in these conversations that help you determine if they did the writing themselves?
Oh, that is one of the that's a great question. Um, Yeah, there is. I don't have it in this presentation, but I have an exact answer for that question. And I can't recall, I am blanking on the exact questions that I ask, but it is all centered around process. Like, I see you went this direction with this. Can you tell me a little bit about why you felt this when a lot of the literature says this? So you're giving them like the counter argument, you're playing kind of devil's advocate a little bit, and you'll find out very quickly if their knowledge base is surface level or if they really deeply considered something. And I have a series of questions about that. I'll do a quick plug. If you're going to go to QM Connect, okay, in Florida, I think it's like one of the last weeks in October this
Yes.
year. I think it's in Fort Lauderdale. Um, there are symposiums that you can take, and I'm doing a 4-hour symposium that's meant to be a train the trainer called Making Learning Visible. And it's all about authentic assessment. 4 hours. We're going to talk policy. I'm going to give you strategies. I'm going to break down my process for how we make something authentic. I've got a whole thing just on that. So I'd encourage you, if you're able to go, I'd love to hang out with you in Florida. Come hit me up. Other
It's
questions?
in Jacksonville, October 26th through 28th.
Yes, there we go. Thank you. Check that out
Okay.
on the thread.
How do you address learners feeling uncomfortable revealing sensitive aspects of their private lives within the assignment that you were talking about earlier?
Well, I try and preference, and I have faculty members generally. I don't know how faculty members say this, but I tell my students, like, remember that you are in a public forum when you're doing discussions, right? The only person that's going to be reading your paper is me, right? So whatever you reveal, that's FERPA. I'm not going to reveal anything you may have revealed that's sensitive. But I say in my netiquette policy for my class, I say be careful when you publish something in the discussion because that's readable by anyone. And if you're not comfortable sharing a particular detail, or you have a question of a personal nature, that should be an email, right? Not something that you put out into the public forum. So if I'm asking a question or we're designing a class like, I need you to talk to me about how have you ever suffered trauma, and I want you to detail the trauma. Like there is a red flag that goes up in my mind, and rightly so in the faculty member, where we have to be very delicate about how we do that. Like without naming specifics, how can we rephrase that question to not have someone suffer through another trauma because I was asked to do this in my class, right? We don't want to put students in that situation per se. We have to be careful with mental health. But that being said, I mean, I have a lot of psychology classes that get into like trauma-based decision making or trauma-based therapy. And it's like, yeah, you hear some really crazy stuff. That could be a journaling assignment rather than an open public forum. I'd probably opt to just do like a one-on-one conversation then.
What is the specific Gen AI tool you use to generate the Hammurabi interviews?
And that was ChatGPT. That was
Okay.
actually ChatGPT using an agent. And the agent's like, well, what do you want to do? Well, I want to create a conversational journalist, famous person interaction and actually have it respond conversationally from this context using this primary source and only this primary source. And then I uncheck the boxes for web search. And then, of course, ChatGPT, if you've used it a lot, you know, it kind of gives you like a robotic kind of answer, like, here's a summary of the paper, bullet point, bullet point, bullet point. That's not enough, right? And that's not natural. So it took a lot of back and forth. But the cool thing is, if you put the ChatGPT desktop application, you can just talk to Hammurabi and it'll just answer back and forth using your voice rather than having to type anything. And that's really fun when you can kind of get it to that to do like an actual voice recognition.
Okay. We'll probably take one or two more. And
Sure.
if we aren't able to get all the questions, is there some contact information they can reach out to you? Or
Absolutely. My QR code is on the screen. Hit
I
me up on
don't
LinkedIn,
see
send me
it.
a message.
I
Oh, I should be
I
still
think you
sharing
need
my.
to share. Yeah.
Hold on a second. Let me hit stop share and
I
reshare.
can see it.
Oh, okay. I can't. So
Share, boom, again, share, and then bring the PowerPoint back up.
okay, there it is.
There
Yeah.
we go. You got it.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
but
right.
definitely, certainly, like connect with me on LinkedIn. I'd love to chat with you more about it. I love talking about this topic, as you can tell, and I have more to share, but I'm limited to an hour. Um,
Yes. Yes. Unfortunately, it is 2 o'clock. So I'm very sorry. Thank you, everyone, for attending. Great webinar, Steve. As always, you always have wonderful information. And I'm sorry that we didn't get to all your questions, but if you didn't get your question answered, there's the QR code that you can reach out